Namaste, greetings and blessings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. This is our Sunday message, and I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founder and spiritual director of this center. And I invite you to watch not only this Sunday message, but any of our archived messages. I invite you to join any classes or events that we have going on. I invite you to reach out and email if you have any questions. Questions about this community, questions about me, questions about what we do, or questions about this science of mind and spirit, liberation theology that we practice and teach. And if by chance you find yourself seeking beloved community with other like-minded beings, even if you already belong, are a member of another community, church, or center, you are more than free to have multiple affiliations wherever you are fed and find community. You are invited. And lastly, feel free to click like, subscribe, and share this or any other message or announcements with others in your circle. And with that, much appreciation, love, and blessings. Enjoy the message. Namaste and greetings. Welcome to the month of October. I feel like I should start saying Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year because. So, today, what are we talking about? Well, the theme for the month is glow up. Today, we are talking about the ultimate glow up. The ultimate glow up, spiritual transformation, that is the ultimate glow up. As we are nearly through the year with the theme of rising higher, going deeper, we pause, we check in, and we ask ourselves if our glow up, is it showing in our bodies? Is it showing in our minds? Is it showing in our relationships? Is it showing up in our lives overall? Everywhere that people exist, is the ultimate glow up? Is this showing up in these places? If not, then today is the perfect day to allow the invitation to be the beginning of the glow up process. P.S. By the way, what if I told you that the steps to being enlightened, is that something you'd be interested in? Like, this is how you can become enlightened. Is that of interest to you? Then let us begin. So let's start with just a basic pop culture definition or explanation. Glow up is an informal term for a life affirming personal transformation. Typically, it is one involving significant changes that can show up as appearance and style, and often as a deeper awareness and expression of one's confidence, authenticity, maturity, and various other aspects of one's personal and professional life. So we good. Okay. How many of you, as you were listening to me talk about glow up, somewhere in there you heard or you recognize the concept of grow up? So, why would we want to grow up when we have the opportunity to glow up? just as a general question, why? So pause with that, put it in the parking lot, let it sit there for a moment, put it in the pan, put a little butter in there, let the onions marinate. Just let it sit there for a second. Breathe. There's this idea that you may be familiar with. And this image that you see on your screen may spark the idea of growing up. Anybody know what this is? You know what these four silhouettes represent? Any idea? Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a hint because I know some of y'all might be struggling. There's a concept in a particular story that says never grow up. Now, in the story, there's a very specific reason why a particular character and a couple of others are deeply rooted in this concept of never grow up. And for the sake of our conversation, we're going to borrow from dear old Peter Pan the concept of never grow up, but rather glow up. Why Choose to grow up when you can glow up. Let that sink in. So, as we're talking about this idea of grow up, glow up, one of the reasons why we're playing with this linguistic turn of a phrase, how often have we been conditioned to equate growing up not just with the concept of growing old, but also with declining in power, agency, dignity, playfulness, imagination, and a mind that believes in infinite possibilities? How entrenched in our culture is there the idea that as we grow up, we grow old, and growing old means to decline? So when I say don't grow up, I'm not saying don't be part of the growing up process, don't become older. I'm not saying that. I'm saying dismiss the consciousness and the paradigm that equates growing up and getting older with any form of decline. Why buy into that story? Does the body change? Yes. But there are many people in blue zones who are quite old, upper 90s, some in their hundreds, and they are very mobile, flexible, strong, living their best lives. So there's no guarantee that when we reach a certain age, it automatically means, well, once you hit your 20s, everything starts to droop and sag. And then once you hit, oh Lord, last week I thought 22 was bad, man. 24 hit me and I was like, Lord, what? What? So that's why don't grow up if your mind is anchored in the consciousness of precisely that. Let it go. Move into the frame of glow up. And one thing that can help us move into that space is, as it says in 1977, actress Ruth Gordon, who was testifying before the U.S. House Select Committee on Aging, she quoted baseball player Satchel Paige when she said, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are?" If you didn't know how old you were right now, you don't know how old, and someone says, "How old are you?" How old do you feel? Now, her husband, later said, well, actually, Satchel Paige isn't the originator of the quote. It's actually Reverend Clarence H. Wilson, who said it in a sermon in 1927, just to give it reference. If you didn't know how old you currently were, how old would you believe that you are? The spark of divinity is what beckons each of us to a higher, fuller experience and expression of life. Do we have that spark? The spark is there, yes. It's a given. But the question is, are we utilizing it? Like electricity. Like I could turn the lights off
and sit in the corner and rock myself moaning, it's dark. I don't like it dark. Why is it so dark? It's dark like nighttime. I can't see nothing. Or I can utilize the spark called electricity and turn the lights on. Are we making use of the spark of divinity in order to be beckoned into higher, fuller experience and expression of life? Or are we talking about it rather than experiencing it? Right? It's one thing to talk about planting a seed, and it's a completely different thing to do it. Tracy can talk to you about her experience with one of our neighbors because now there's this shared community between the two of them referencing being gardeners. And initially Tracy was like, well, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, and and he's helping me with some of the, and then Tracy got her hands dirty. And now that Tracy has been able to harvest vegetables from the garden, Tracy's like, okay, I understand what I did this time, but next time, right? It's a very different process to think about it than to do it, than to experience it. So, in this thing called glowing up, what exactly are we being asked to do? Well, let's explore a couple of words. These are three variations of the same basic word: transmogrify, transmogrification, and the past tense, transmogrified, right? But to transmogrify means to change or transform in some kind of surprising or magical manner. Oftentimes it's said to be grotesque or to be humorous in how it changes. Now, grotesque in this use doesn't necessarily mean ugly. It means something so different from what it originally was, there's no way to say, oh yeah, that's what that used to be. Okay? Just to give it context. Examples of transmogrification. Do you know who this guy is? Not the actor, but the character that he's playing in this image. Do you know who this is? I know Deborah knows, but anybody else? Anybody else know? Okay. If you know who he is, then you know what he can become. Then you know that that is an expression of transmogrification. But what's another example of transmogrification that's magical? You know who that is. Okay. There's an example in the Bible of Sorry, Deidre. There's an example in the Bible of transmogrification, but because it's referencing a divine transformation, it has a different word. Okay? So that different word and the passage, but let's do the passage first. The passage where it talks about this is, and note, caterpillar to butterfly, same thing. The passage in the Bible where it talks about this is referencing how Jesus appeared at a very particular time. Now, we're not going to go through this whole thing, but the term transfiguration, and it refers to that spectacular moment when Jesus appeared in all of his glory to the apostles, Peter, John, and James. Okay? Jesus was transfigured. Once again, it's a version of transmogrification, but because it references a state of spirituality, a state of divinity, a different word is used. It's one of the things I love about words. So, the root concept, though, is once again, it's a dramatic change in some form and appearance from one state to another. And in this term, it's beautiful. It's a deeper spiritual state, such as enlightenment. Enlightenment is not about becoming divine. Instead, it is about becoming more fully human. Whew, it is the end of ignorance. Becoming more fully human. Which is the end of ignorance. Now, when we talk about ignorance, there are various ways that ignorance shows up. Ignorance is bliss. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Bury your head in the sand. There's all kinds of ways of expressing ignorance and being rooted in the ignorance of. For the sake of our conversation here and now, ignorance is believing anything, whether we were conditioned, indoctrinated, believing anything that is not true about yourself. Your elementary school teachers convinced you that you were stupid. That's ignorance. Both theirs and yours if you adopted that belief as your own. Now you are invited to shed the ignorance and awaken to the truth of your being. Just because I was not good with numbers or math in third grade does not mean I'm stupid or that I was stupid then. Even if my math skills today are not what Miss Finkelberry said they should be, it does not mean I'm stupid. It simply means I am not good. I am not skilled. My area of genius is not that particular space. Okay, not everyone is an excellent cook. Not everyone is an excellent mathematician. Not everyone. So release. Let it be the end of ignorance. And if it's the end of ignorance and we are awakening, that's enlightenment. Because whether it's bodhisattva, a being who is awake or awakening, or it is the Buddha, the awakened one, it's being woke and ever awakening, just like we do each day. We go to sleep so that our bodies can rest, our minds can rest, and then we awaken. We do it again and again and again, like breathing. So it's being in a state of ever awakening. That's enlightenment. I have not heard of a single Buddha, past or present. Yes, there have been multiple Buddhas. I have not heard of a single Buddha, past or present, who has been enlightened by sacred prayers and scriptures. In other words, you don't become enlightened by simply praying or reading. You must practice. Find the ignorance, end it, root it out, awaken, practice, do it. That's how. So I can read a recipe, and I can sit there and think about, this, as the way, the ingredients, this sound like it tastes pretty good. I have not ever heard of a single person, past or present, who has ever been nourished by simply praying and reading a recipe, right? At some point, you have to fix the meal. Just reading a menu in a restaurant isn't going to get food in front of you. At some point, you must select a meal, communicate it to the server for them to go tell the cook. So, even in that, there is something that we are asked, invited to do. In this case, choose and communicate. What is the practice that moves us into this space? The way to eliminate ignorance is through steady, focused discrimination between the observer and the world. Discrimination in this sense means to discern. Do I have the awareness to know where the observer and where the observed, where do they bump up against each other? What part of me, what part of my consciousness is observer, observing the observed? As we discern the difference, we are then able to, oh, that's ignorance. That's falsehood. That's not principle. Now, what am I to do with it? What is my invitation regarding that very thing? So, the way to enlightenment, the way to wake up, is to release sleepiness and to wake up and then get up. So, once again, the concept is not to simply sit on the meditation cushion and Om Shanti Om Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Om Sachitananda Parabrahma. That's part of a practice, but it's not the end all be all. The actual practice is when you're driving in traffic. The actual practice is when you're watching the news and you feel yourself being triggered. The actual practice is when you visit family who still see you as and treat you as the child that they not only view you as, but want to keep you as. I need you to stay the child that's under my thumb. That's where the practice is. Meditation cushion, part of the practice. Just like a surgeon washing their hands. That's not the surgery. It's a part of the process. Just as, okay, I'm done. Now, gloves and then I have to go into the room, scalpel in hand, and I make an incision. That's where the surgery occurs. That's where we are now excising. We are now removing whatever does not serve us anymore, whatever the process is. That's in the world. The meditation cushion, yeah, it helps us prep, but it's not the end all and be all for the practice. Because if you cannot find the truth right where you are, where do you expect to find it? Okay, I'm gonna let that sit with you for a minute. Breathe. So, as I said before, part of the practice is, yes, on the meditation cushion. But in order for this thing called enlightenment this awakening to come into being, then it also calls us into a deep intimacy with all things. And this idea of intimacy, yes, ooh, it scares a lot of folks. What's up with you? Intimacy. Can't you feel it? Fear of intimacy can show up as one's inability to share thoughts and ideas, one's inability to share innermost feelings, and the inability to share experiences for a variety of reasons. I don't want to be judged. It's none of their business. I'm shy and whatever the thing is. So let's keep that in mind. Intimacy, there's all kinds and all various forms of intimacy, right? But ultimately, intimacy calls us into a space of being vulnerable. And that's one of the things that, or one of the reasons why we avoid it at all costs. I don't want to be vulnerable, so I don't want to be intimate. And yet, what did the enlightenment is intimacy with all things. So I invite you to, and when you watch the recording, unless that's what you're doing now, rewind, look at that slide with intimacy. What are some, now how do I apply this to all things? How do I allow myself to be vulnerable? How do I allow myself? If enlightenment is the goal, enlightenment is connection, respect, honoring, and recognition of all things as divine expressions and incarnations of God. Do I do that? Because if I do, connect, respect, honor, recognize, then I'm already, to a certain degree, being intimate with the divine as all things, which means I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable. Breathe. As you look at the varying expressions, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. What is a word that you would use to describe, one word that each of these expressions communicates? What's the one word? Type it in the chat. What's the word? All 5 of the expressions are communicating something. What is it for you? What is that one word? In 3, 2, 1. Those who are awake live in a state of constant amazement or awe, marvel, such as Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel. Those who are enlightened live in a state of constant amazement. Life amazes them. They are in awe. Life is awesome. Life is marvelous. It's one way of sort of judging, estimating, to what degree am I awake? Is life awful or awesome? Ooh. I gotta get back to you on that. Right? Breathe. Because when we can find amazement in things we typically take for granted, then we are well on our way down the path of awakening, or as she says, follow the yellow brick road. That is the path to awakening, the path to being enlightened, right? And as we are told here, there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And there is no way to enlightenment because enlightenment is the way. Talk about paradox. Breathe that in. A reference point, taking what Thich Nhat Hanh said. Do you know what movie this is a scene from? Okay. Do you know what this Chinese phrase or series of words are? Okay. One translation of this, Kung Fu. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Keep that in mind. In the movie, Mr. Han, Jackie Chan, tells Jaden, his character Shaldre, he tells him, Kung Fu lives in everything we do. It's how we put a jacket on and how we take it off. It lives in how we treat people. Everything is Kung Fu. So that means there is no way to Kung Fu. Kung Fu is the way. We find, I'm sure you know what this is, so we find from wax on, wax off, everyday activities are the practice. And it's not specifically what we do, but how we do it. Daniel's son didn't realize that in waxing on and waxing off, he was learning two different blocks. So it's not so much I'm not practicing karate, but you are. How are you practicing karate? Through the activity of wax on, wax off, rather than karate is with a gi, with a belt, I'm in a dojo and I block and I block. No, that's a very myopic way of thinking about it. Versus everyday activities are karate. Wax on, wax off. Everyday activities are kung fu, jacket on, jacket off. How we do anything is how we do everything because kung fu is in everything. Spirit is in everything. So, no, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So when we think about this idea of, people are excited, like, look, I got the new Enlightenment app. Yeah, cool. It's a fad, cool. But be mindful that true mastery, the person who has attained mastery of an art, will reveal it in their every action. That means if you have mastered cooking, some way, some shape or form, that mastery shows up in everything else that you do. That's why I tell the story of the tea master. He mastered making tea to such a profound degree that when he picked up the sword and breathed with the same mastery, the same focus, the other swordsmen recognized mastery. Didn't matter that it was mastery of tea versus sword. They recognized mastery and they bowed in humble respect and left him alone. So enlightenment is not about achieved. Enlightenment is about I am being. Breathe. You will be hearing this phrase quite a bit from this point forward. So get it in your memory banks. There's a whole section of it in my new book that's coming out soon. Shuhare, or shuhari. Technically it's ri, but shuhari. The concept of moving from novice to master. So just put that in your mind. First, you learn the basics. You develop greater skill with the basics to such a degree that I got this, that now you can reform. You can change the rules, bend the rules, as Morpheus told Neo in the Matrix. So just put that in your memory banks for a moment, because we will be talking about it more as the weeks go on. And in many ways, we find some of the same lessons. Dorothy and her crew thought that they needed to go somewhere to receive. Yet when they get to the end of the journey, Glenda reminds them, you could have done this from the beginning. You had the power all along. So this was not the way, but being was the way. So oftentimes we have to go through what we go through because we don't realize. So we go through the journey and then we get to the, so we breathe. If you've never read The Zen of Oz, it's a small little book. I highly recommend it. It is a Zen way of interpreting the Wizard of Oz. Good book. Just throwing that out there. So if you remember her, she said, remember the brick road that I mentioned earlier? Let's go deeper. The acronym, BRICK. Being. This is your way of being as enlightenment. Recognize the truth of your being. Imago Dei. You are the very image of God. Be anchored and centered in the truth, and have the paradox of the mystery and the both and. Just as a Japanese koan is a riddle or phrase that doesn't make any rational sense. What is the sound of one hand clapping? And supposedly, once you realize, I know what the sound of one hand clapping is, enlightenment, right? So the koan is being in the state of, I have no answer. I don't understand the question. I don't understand the answer. Simply be with it. And then moving into a space of, oftentimes we think things are either or versus both and. That's the koan. So be that which you are. Recognize the truth of your being as the divine image of God. Stay centered and anchored in principle and truth. And be in the space of the mystery and the both and. And when we can do this more fully, then we will realize that we never needed to go to the Emerald City. We never needed the wizard at all, because we've already had the brains, the heart, the courage. We've already had the power all along. We just didn't realize it. Breathe. And just as this Zen garden reminds us to be in that state of amazement, the state of awe, the state of marvel, as it awakens us. Love does not overcome hate and fear through controversy, argument, or force, but by a subtle power of transformation, transmutation, and sublimation. It is invisible in its essence, but apparent through its act. Just as light overcomes darkness, And as the presence of heat warms a cool room until it is comfortable, so the radiant action of love and peace dissipates fear, dissipates hate, and dissipates confusion. I want to remix this one. I like this because, yes, we'll still remix it. So, love recognizes why hate is present. And it is through that recognition and the presence that love is willing to do whatever it must do to quell the fires of hate. Love is not a passive, codependent ointment that numbs the pain, but rather it is more often like the temporary pain of a shot so that the medication can enter the body. Love does not avoid, it confronts. But it confronts for the purpose of healing and transformation. Breathe. So, some of the things that we can do to assist us in this process of awakening and enlightenment and stuff, be very clear of what are the 7 areas of your life: physical, emotional. If you're not sure what all 7 of them are, because we've talked about them before, though you may be new, check in with me. 7 areas. What are your mental equivalents? The 4 pillars of your mental equivalents. And what does it mean? Embodied way of life. Shuhari. When we are engaged in these 3 things, we understand the ebb and the flow, and we understand this concept of the paradox of, as the MC Escher hands drawing hands indicates, as yin yang indicates, as Aham Brahmasmi indicates. This is the practice of transfiguration. This is what it means for us to glow up. The Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 grants us access to the true brilliance of absolute beingness that is expressing in, through, and as us, always and in all ways. We are being given a conscious way of applying the power for the good of all. Always the choice is ours. We will acknowledge and express our divine magnificence, or we will deny and suppress it. Will we be a beneficial presence or a detrimental one? Will we let our spiritual powers atrophy and weaken, or will we let them flourish and grow stronger? This liberation theology, when applied effectively, not only gives us the keys for the locks, but it dissolves the locks and the chains completely, setting us absolutely free to glow up. Right? Like that's the goal. To have these things gone, not just, but gone. Let war become a thing of the past. Not just reduce it, but eliminate it. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I will say it first, and then if it resonates with you, you say it with me the second time. But before we get there, Yoda is reminding us size matters not. And we can, once again, we can apply the wisdom to anything. How I grew up matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my economic background, judge me by my color, judge me by my gender, my sexual orientation, judge me by my, as well you should not. For my ally is the infinite, and a powerful ally it is. It is life, and life creates life. Life makes itself grow. It is the energy that surrounds all that is all that is. It binds us, connects us, and holds us together. It expresses as us because we are luminous beings. We are not ignorant enough to believe that we are simply the flesh and bone, but we are more than we can even imagine. You must feel this divine power around you, in you, as you, between you and that tree, between you and that rock, to the point where you realize there is no tree separate from you. You and the tree are one. You and the rock are one. You and the earth are one, because there is only one. And as Yoda told Luke, yes, even between you and the ship. But because Luke was ignorant of, he wasn't able to move the ship until Yoda explained, demonstrated, and explained. And then it took Luke more time, and then eventually he got it. Do we get it now? The affirmation: I am a brilliantly luminous being. Together, I am a brilliantly luminous being. And so it is. This week's Thursday night study group questions, or your own personal journal questions. When I was a kid and looked forward to growing up, what exactly was I looking forward to? Never grow up is an invitation for me to fill in the blank. What does it mean for me to glow up? What does it mean for me to be more fully human as it regards to enlightenment? What does it mean for me to have intimacy with all things? Where does the brick road lead me? What am I invited to practice in order to eliminate ignorance from my life? And then lastly, in what ways do I express mastery? How I do anything is how I do everything. This week's The Practice. Are you ready? Okay. The practice this week. Bum, 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 dun. There's a song called Young at Heart. Listen to the song or read the lyrics, and then have a discussion about it, specifically how the song and how science of mind and spirit dovetail or don't. Hmm, hmm, hmm. And so we enter into that space now that we refer to as prayer. And so for this moment, I simply breathe and acknowledge the infinite goodness and divinity that is present in, through, and as all that is. This great ally that is the force, the Om, the Ah, that sound that is in Amen, Allah, Shalom, that sound that is in so many sacred words. It is that that expresses itself as us and is precisely the power and the energy, the magic, the transformative that gives us the ability to create a world that works for all, to dispel ignorance, to not only break the chains and unlock the locks, but to eliminate them, be they war, poverty, racism. We have the ability to not only reduce the harm, but to eliminate it in those forms. Ruach. So we breathe, and we breathe that sacred knowing that we are already the demonstration of answered prayer. And we allow ourselves to glow up right here and right now. And so it is. And so it is. Blessings, one and all. As usual, it's first Sunday, so see you in fellowship if you're going to show up for fellowship. Otherwise, see you somewhere during the week. Or right back here, same glow up time, same glow up channel. Love and appreciate you. Blessings.